Well, it couldn't be telco to techco without the keynotes from Philippe Ensarguet, who is VP of Software Engineering at Orange. So a great big welcome to you, Philippe, and thank you. Um, it occurred to me when we were prepping for this that it's 4 years ago since we had a big conversation at Mobile World Congress about how telecoms was beginning to adopt cloud native technologies, for instance, CI/CD and so on. And I'm just wondering, in that time, you've obviously had a huge amount of experience. And what would you say are the key challenges that telcos are facing with moving to cloud native?
Okay, so first of all, hi Henny, I'm super happy to be here with you 1 year again, I would say, for keynoting and opening the floor for your telco to techco session. So I think it's super interesting to start with the key challenges because it, I would say, opened the doors for what we need to tackle in the future. So according to me, when I'm thinking about key challenges on the cloud native for telcos, I've got, I would say, three in mind. The first one is definitively related to what I'm calling the skills gap. Because honestly, in cloud native, if a network function remains a network function, all around the network function features has changed and massively. So it's a different way to think, to design, to implement. So it's about microservices, new way of managing resiliency, scalability, have a deep integration of network softwareization, automation. So here we are on the hard skill, but what is super important for me also is that the soft skill are quite different. It's the one I would say from the software world. So first challenge, skills gap. Second one is definitively related to integration complexity and operational challenges. Because, okay, I said that the way we design a cloud native is different than what we did in the past for VNF or PNF. But it's about containers, Kubernetes, but it's a new way also to manage the monitoring and the observability because we got a lot of silos to reconcile and to, I would say, manage from this operation standpoint. And something that is even more important related to this integration complexity, the cloud native, I would say, new ecosystem need to coexist at the same time with the legacy one. And perhaps the third challenge is related to the fact that we are in front of massively distributed infrastructure. So honestly, telco systems are really complex systems with real-time synchronous workloads living close to asynchronous one. And all of this is massively distributed across huge infrastructure where we could have, I would say, private cloud, POP, edge connection, or even public cloud. So it's huge infrastructure. So just to recap, for me, three key challenges: skills gap, integration complexity, and operational challenges. And the third one is about the fact that it's something that is massively distributed.
Okay, so all of those are quite big issues in themselves. So with that in mind, please could you summarize what progress has been made despite these big challenges? How mature would you say the cloud native tech
Yeah.
is in telecom?
Okay, so for me, Honey, perhaps to start with, it's super important to share that what does it mean to be cloud native? And for me, being cloud native is about, I would say, three things. The first thing is we got a cloud native runtime environment to have the network function running. The second thing is we got an automated deployment and lifecycle and operation management of the network function that is cloud native. And the last part, that is perhaps for me the most important one, we really need to have true cloud native network function implemented in the true cloud native way. So regarding to your question about the maturity and the progress, my global feeling is that really over the past 4 years, the whole telecom industry has made a notable strides in adopting cloud native technology, and in particular with the rollout of 5G. And while many, I would say, telcos are transitioning to cloud native architecture, the shift for me is still incomplete. Even if 5G core, like I said, is the spot where things are happening right now. We are in front of, I would say, a broad adoption. We have a growing recognition about the necessity for cloud native solution because we need to meet scalability, new elasticity, and efficiency. And that's where really, for me, the cloud native interest is rising. Something that is absolutely critical to understand when we are talking about cloud native, it means that from network function, we are talking about CNF. And I want to pause a few seconds there because I would say our maturity is really tied to what we understand with the signification of the C. The C in CNF is not for container, but for cloud native. And for me, it's extremely important. Even if I would say in telecom industry, we have now, I would say, a de facto adoption of container technology by network function vendors. C for CNF doesn't stand for containerized network function, but for cloud native network function. And here, honestly, even if the vendors and the industrial of the ecosystem made a lot of progress, honestly, here, the maturity for cloud native software is really, I would say, under development. So this is a full transition, a full new way of envisaging the implementation, the deployment, and the operation of the network function. And honestly, I mentioned previously in our chat that it requires, I would say, new technological ingredients in the recipe, but it's also about the process, the people, and the cultural changes. And notably related to network vendors that I mentioned that today are at a really different maturity states. So the main challenge we got today for me on this part is that the industry faces the challenges I mentioned on the skill gap, on the operational complexity from hybrid to multi-cloud environment, and unfortunately, I would say, the slow transformation from virtual network function, the VNF world, to the CNF, the cloud native function world. And guess what? Putting, I would say, an overbloated virtual machine into containers doesn't check the box for the cloud native stickers. And here, what is super interesting for me and why I'm so much invested in particular in the open source ecosystem, it's because I truly believe that the open source initiative are absolutely crucial in establishing the standards, the open standards, the open portability and interoperability we need to address all the complexities that I've just introduced here.
Okay, so we're going to come on to open source later on, but first of all, I'm just wondering whether you feel that progress has been faster or slower than you expected, or maybe both in different places. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that, Hani, we are chatting together for 4 to 5 years right now, and you start to know me a little bit more, perhaps, than the audience. I'm someone super committed, but also super impatient. So for me, I would say that the things are never moving fast enough. But for real, what is very important to understand is that we are in front of a huge ecosystem shift. So, okay, it's about telecom operators, but it's also about network function vendors, all the ecosystem on the, I would say, orchestration and operation. And we are having the AI ops provider that are also coming into place. So it's a huge ecosystem where we need to support the shift. I think that today on the infrastructure level, I think that it's certainly where the progress have been the most important one. And I know, honestly, several telco peers that set very robust and highly automated infrastructure. And you know, we are able right now to bring industrial grade cloud native infrastructure coming from the open source world or from the IT world or from the network vendors. And we are making all of this moving toward the horizontal implementation strategy we early discussed on into, I would say, this telco to techco event. So I would say that on the infrastructure, we are on the good road, and I think that today we are really able to support at infrastructure level what we need. The second step, perhaps I can open, is on the deployment and the life cycle management, and it's where we started our discussion 4 years back when you introduced for our interview. It's about the GitOps and the GitOps operating model, because you know that GitOps is the operating model of the cloud native. So if we want to move toward cloud native telco, we have no real other option than to consider GitOps as the operating model of the cloud native telco ecosystem. So here, I would say that we are moving forward, but only if all the pieces that we need to sustain and to deploy a true GitOps model is in our hand. And here it's really tied to what I mentioned previously regarding the fact that we need really true software artifact deployment descriptors or whatever to have a concrete implementation. And for instance, at Orange, we implemented something that is incremental in our transformation that we are calling the Network Integration Factory Tooling Zone. And it's the tool we are using to make converging our network function deployment and lifecycle management. And it's a true GitOps way to manage the network function deployment across all the vendors we are considering in the future. And you know what? We are absolutely not the only one. I've got friends from peers, for instance, at Deutsche Telekom or Swisscom, just for instance, that are very, very, very serious in this play also. So I would say that we have strong progress on the deployment and lifecycle management. The things to, I would say, move even faster is really to rely on true software artifact material. On the network function implementation, it's certainly where we have the more of progress to be made. And honestly, I'm talking on weekly basis to our partners, the network function vendors. And we have some that are honestly quite in advance, while other are I would say, still, I would say, putting a cloud native stickers, like I said, on something that may look like a virtual machine that is bundled into containers. So it's not truly cloud native. So it's really, really important to open the hood when it's about cloud native to understand how much it's cloud native from what we are buying. But honestly, what I'm observing is that our partners are extremely open and to engage the discussion and to understand basically not only the need and the requirement from Orange, but from the whole ecosystem from telecom operator standpoint. And I think that is something that have been heavily, I would say, stimulated thanks to the open source ecosystem, for instance. The last part, perhaps where we could also question ourselves about are we progressing at the right pace is on the orchestration side. Because with when you have something like Kubernetes in the place, you have the ability to manage the orchestration stuff from the network function in a potential totally different way. In the past, we got, you know, the sum approach that made our network function running and be synchronized and orchestrated and whatever. But when you have Kubernetes at the new center of the room, we know that using operators and CRDs to use the proper Kubernetes lifecycle management and orchestration is something that could be extremely interesting. So here is basically the analysis I can share with you, Henny, on where the progress has been made.
Okay, so bearing in mind that some areas are not as advanced as you would like, such as around the network functions part, and also the orchestration will have to do some catching up. What are the big benefits that cloud native has brought to telecoms so far, would you say?
Okay, I think that this question is extremely important because we all know that we need to start with why and not about how. And I talk a lot on the how, and I love your question because it's an opportunity for me to deep dive on the why. Honestly, I think that we can identify benefit areas covering almost the full life cycle of the network function that I introduced on my previous answer. The first benefit, according to me, is around scalability and elasticity. So here, I'm pointing out the dynamic resource allocation. Because with cloud native architectures, we are having telecom operators that are able to scale up or down based on the demand from the customer standpoint, which for me is absolutely crucial for managing traffic spike. And I would say, especially in region experiencing a rapid digital transformation with automation. So we are really able to have very, very scalable infrastructure thanks to cloud native. So first one is about scalability and elasticity. The second one, because we also need to consider this one, is around, I would say, the cost efficiency. Because we can really target and optimize operational cost thanks to cloud native. Because by a leveraged cloud native solution, we can really optimize our infrastructure and reduce the cost associated with hardware and maintenance. And honestly, at the end of the day, we are about to lead more efficient operation. The first benefit that I would love to emphasize is related about agility and speed. Okay, we are not as telco deploying 5G core every morning, but we need to, in the lifetime, you have the setup, the update and the upgrade. So, okay, for the setup, we won't set up every morning a new network function, but for the life cycle, the update and the upgrade, we really need to take benefit of this agility. And with cloud native technologies, we facilitate quicker deployment of services and application, and really we can support, I would say, the change or the adaptation, whether is it for new feature or even for managing CVs or security issues very, very fast and from a very professional standpoint. Another benefit that for me is super important is basically the reliability and enhanced service delivery. So here I want to point the improved performance, because with the adoption of, I would say, an intent base to manage cloud and network function can enhance significantly the level of control of deployment. And the reason of this is because with with the GitOps as the operating model for cloud native, we are really pushing forefront what we are calling one source of truth, that is Git in our case. And we got automatic orchestration provided by GitOps and Kubernetes to manage the cloud infrastructure and network function. Something that is really starting and in front of us is really about the integration of AI and machine learning in cloud native application to enhance even more the service delivery and allowing better customer experience and even more reliable services. Of course, it's super important to understand that as a telco, we have also a potential benefit around operational flexibility. So I'm talking about multi-cloud strategy deployment capabilities. With cloud native frameworks, we have a direct and native support from multi-cloud environments. So we are able to provide to telecom industry the right flexibility to choose the best service and tool, I would say, they need. And here it's really about, I would say, the lock-in topic. And you know, Annie, because we already talked about this, that we are at Orange leveraging the work from, I would say, the Linux Foundation Europe project Silva. And today our Orange Telco Cloud basically with what we build, we are really able to set infra from bare metal to virtual machine, from private to edge to public cloud, 100% intent-based using Kubernetes as cornerstone of our management, I would say, environment. The last point that is not a cherry on the cake, but that is also important according to my eyes is, I would say, the way we can innovate around cloud native, and I would say innovate through open source. And here, one more time, for me, it's extremely important to emphasize on the collaboration and the need for standards. And with the different open source project and ecosystem we are having today, honestly, it's a unique place for having telecom peers sharing, I would say, their new requirements, their ways of working. And I think it's extremely interesting to bring a one single voice from operator ecosystem need and requirement toward the whole telecom ecosystem. We need to support the pivot.
Okay, so open source is very tightly linked to cloud native technologies, as you've just mentioned, about standardization and about collaboration and innovation. Could you say a little bit about if cost effectiveness is a major driver for open source here?
I think that you are pointing an interesting question because, yes, something that is a reality is that using, I would say, open source technology is definitively, I would say, linked to the reduction of the licensing fees. But something that we absolutely need to keep in mind is that utilizing open source technology, okay, it can lower the cost associated, I would say, to traditional proprietary software licenses. So it means that as a telecom operators, we are able to allocate resources, I would say, on a different way. But something that is absolutely critical to keep in mind around the cost effectiveness part, when you're considering, I would say, across end-to-end chain, all the parts, I'm not saying that open source cost directly less. For me, it's a different way to own your solution, your infrastructure, your tools. And it's also a different way to leverage more, perhaps, your team and what they are covering. So yes, I truly believe that it has a direct impact on cost effectiveness, but it's not zero. It's totally false. We really need to understand that using open source is just a different way to distribute where you will need to put the money on.
So, Philippe, looking forward, how's all this work that's underway now going to feed into 6G? And actually, maybe before we dig into that, we should talk briefly about why we need 6G when there's still such a long way to go with 5G, such as its monetization. And that's always the hot button for people. So let's start there and then move on.
Annie, honestly, it looks like a very, very nice last question. So For me, 6G has been widely used so far to refer to the mobile technology evolution to be deployed from 2030. So we call on the industry to reassess the benefits of using a generation-based terminology for the technology's evolution versioning and to focus on the marketing and communication on the value enabled for the customer and the society by new innovation rather than just enabling a new technology. So on the 6G topic at Orange, we really pledge for having a software-based 6G without a massive hardware replacement. So with 6G, basically, for us, first, we absolutely want to respect the carbon trajectory. And on this part, it's about less hardware, even if we know we need to have some upgrade because we will got some new frequencies at a moment in time. So here, a very, very important point, according to us, 6G should not force us to renew the hardware. Second point, our investment must be in line with our revenues. So here, once again, it's really about the hardware deployment. And the third part that is really, really, really important. We need to size according really to the use cases we see. And honestly, Annie, there is no point in doing 10 gig sec without the appropriate use cases. It's just not sustainable. So in terms of timing, it's exactly the perfect moment for envisaging a truly cloud-native 6G, as we just got few weeks or days back the 3GPP kickoff about the initial studies. So in terms of timeline, we know that we won't have near final specification before March 2029. So no real product grade 6G implementation before almost the same period. So it means that we could perhaps expect having, I would say, end of 2030, the very first initial commercial deployment. And in between, so between 2025 and 2030, I think it's a huge opportunity to leverage the cloud native topic. Most of the telcos, like you know, have their initial 5G deployments that need to be renewed or reconsidered or to re-enter into, I would say, a new procurement steps and so on. And we absolutely need to take the opportunity of this massive learning from operators and for vendors, I would say, to push further the cloud native path. So it's always for me in the ecosystem, at least a dual play, the telecom operators and the network function vendors. It's the whole ecosystem that will win. No one will win on one side or on another. It's a full ecosystem transformation. So yes, we really need to have cloud native experts from operators and vendors sitting together and manage the right non-functional requirement for 6G. And you know, Annie, I'm so surprised years after years after years of Mobile World Congress that we still have sessions about how to monetize 5G. So we are about to build the 6G and we don't really have the right equation for the monetization of the 5G at scale. So yes, I think it would be nice to have a business focus and not what could like to be a pure techno push position. So to say it in another way, we are perfectly on time to put and set cloud native into the 6G journey.
Philippe, it's been a privilege and a pleasure as always. Have a good week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Annie, for having me. It's always a pleasure on my side.
Thank you.